Hey guys, so we are at Memphis Regionals. We just finished finals. I have with me
Daniel Altavilla.
Awesome. What place did you get?
I won the event.
You won the event, so first place.
Yeah.
How does it feel?
It feels really good. This is my 5th time winning a regional, so I think that's like insane. That I think there's maybe 3 or 4 people who have done that in the history of the game, so I'm pretty happy right now.
You're really stoked right now.
Yeah.
Nice. And how long have you been playing Pokemon for?
I've been playing Pokemon since 2004, so 14 years.
14 years.
Going
dedicated
on 15.
to Nice. It's a game that just keeps on giving, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And what were you playing today?
I was playing Gascan, which is Malamar Marshadow GX.
Okay. Who came up with that name? That name sounds
Alright, so
awesome.
The creator of the deck itself his name is Rukan Xiao, and
oh, we all know about Rukan.
Yeah, we all know about Rukan, and our my buddy Caleb just says gas and then like the second half of a word or whatever. So in this case, it was gas can because of the deck. So that's where that came from.
Nice, awesome. All right, so let's get into the 60 and see what you were playing today.
Sweet.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's pretty much your average, consistent Malamar deck. We have 4 Inkays. So Inkay is going to evolve into Malamar. Malamar is going to accelerate energy with the Psychic Recharge. So pretty much the idea of the deck is that you have Pokemon that discard energies, and it's just a deck that can stream attackers every turn consistently. And the reason it's so good is because you're able to stream non-GX attackers like Deoxys. So we have 2 Deoxys. 2 Marshadow GX, which I'll get into in a sec. 1 Necrozma GX. This card is pretty much your damage output. It lets you hit anything over 120 because literally nothing else in the deck can really hit over 120. So this guy is going to be what takes 1-shots and stuff. So
he's your ringer. Yeah,
big time. And then we have Mimikyu. So Mimikyu is just another non-GX attacker, but what makes Mimikyu really good is that if you start it, you can use Filch to draw 2 cards, which I did multiple times over the last 2 days, and Copycat, which is even better because you just straight up copy your opponent's non-GX attack. And the relevance in that, obviously, is that if your opponent uses an attack like you know, like, but there's so many, like, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but there's so many attacks that you just drop a Mimikyu, you Copycat, and your opponent's like, I honestly did not even expect that.
Right. So
this card's very, very strong. It also lets you against Zoroark attack for 2 energies on a Marshadow, so if the Zoroark player is Riotous Beating on your Malamars, you now can Riotous Beating back with a Marshadow to take a KO.
Yeah.
And then we have a baby Marshadow, Let Loose. So this card lets us extend our turn past the point of our supporter, and it lets us disrupt. Exactly. So this is our only disruption effect. Some decks play Judge. This is Judge as a Pokemon that we have. Judge. Yeah, and we have literally 9 cards to search it out, so it's more consistent than Judge. We have Tapu Lele GX, 1 copy. I think every deck, or most decks at least, should be wanting only 1 copy of Lele and 1 copy of Marshadow, because you want to have the option to use this guy, but if he's prized or if playing down a GX isn't the correct option, then you want to use Let Loose instead. And then we have a Dawnwings Necrozma GX. So this card is going to be really good for the Moon's Eclipse GX attack and for Dark Flash. So basically what this deck is trying to accomplish is we're going to go discard these babies and maybe a Deoxys or 2, use Shadow Hunt with Malamar to copy their attack over and over and over again. And the relevance of this is that against decks like Buzzwole that run Brooklet Hill, we can just always grab our attacker right out of our deck for free, which it takes off so much pressure from us as far as having to run hot. And then the fact that we can just have 3 energies on him and use what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 10 different attacks. No, 11, like 12 different attacks. So this is pretty much a toolbox deck, and it all circles around Marshadow. So the cool thing about Marshadow is that you want to use your attacks like Dark Flash or Power Blast to keep energies on Marshadow, and this way you can set up plays where you have energies on one Marshadow, you have energies on another Marshadow on the bench maybe,
and you just cycle them out.
Exactly.
Nice.
So now your opponent has to think, oh, am I going to go for this shadow or am I going to go for that shadow? Either way I lose.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have a Vital Dance Oricorio. So this card is going to grab out our energies when we need to set up. Very, very strong card in the deck. Won me so many games, including the finals.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have the Spice, the Chimecho, Bell of Silence. So this card says your opponent cannot play any Pokemon that has an ability from their hand on their next turn. So the reason this is so good is because Zoroark decks in general are kind of an iffy matchup, and this Chimecho lets us
pretty much freeze them in time.
Yeah, we just completely lock them out. So now what we're doing is we're using Bell of Silence 2, 3, 4 times. We're setting up a board of multiple Malamars, and then we have a board state where they cannot respond to a board state that they cannot respond to. So that's
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of won you the game, or almost won you game 2 of your finals, because you had that, and he had these Malamars in his hand, and they weren't going anywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So
the Chimecho actually had more than just the Zoroark as far as uses. The Chimecho was able to, like was just said in the finals, to prevent Malamars from being played down. It was used multiple times in top 8 and in top 4 to prevent Lycanroc GX from being played down. And then throughout both days, stopping Vikavolt, stopping Tapu Lele. Maybe I don't have anything yet, but I don't want my opponent to Lele for a Guzma, so I Bell of Silence. This is effectively a second Moon's Eclipse GX if you use it at the right time. So this card is extremely powerful.
Nice.
And then going into the trainers here, we have your average 4 Lily, draw 8 turn 1, draw 6 any other turn, or up to. 4 Cynthia, just shuffle, draw 6, pretty good supporter. And then 3 Guzma, because Guzma kind of clogs up the hand early on, and I'll get back to that later. So this consistency line paired with the Marshadow, the Lele, and all these ball cards is what's going to keep this deck smooth, even though it seems like 8 supporters is probably not that many.
Yeah.
So the 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Mysterious Treasure, which is an Ultra Ball for 1 less, but is limited to only Psychic or Dragon. So we can't grab Shadow, but everything else, yeah.
It's free game.
Exactly. We have 1 Nest Ball. The reason for this was that we wanted to just hit the Chime more consistently. And then we have 1 Friend Ball, which is search your deck for a Pokemon that matches a type of one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. So this format's so good for Friend Ball, especially in a Psychic deck, because every deck plays Tapu Lele or Let Loose Marshadow. So there's a good chance that from turn 1 they have one of these in play. You can just use Friend Ball to grab whatever you want. Yeah. So that's pretty good. We want all these ball cards so that we can, like, let's say Friend Ball for Necrozma, Mysterious Treasure away Necrozma for something else, Ultra Ball away whatever I grabbed for something else, and
to get the Marshadow up and running. Yeah.
We have 4 escape boards, which is going to be to let us keep switching between our attackers smoothly. And then 3 Acrobikes for consistency. 2 Rescue Stretchers for the whole, toolbox part of the deck.
Right.
It can grab back a Malamar, an attacker, or a Marshadow or Lele, or a Choreo. So Rescue Stretcher can turn into 2 energies. It can turn into a supporter. It can turn into sustainability, so that's pretty good. And then lastly, we have Escape Rope. This is taking place of the 4th Guzma here because we want to use it in Mirror to get around Moon's Eclipse GX, and we also want to use it turn 1. It's technically like a 5th escape board because you just use Escape Rope, switch out to a Chimecho, and now you're good. So the reason we ran this card is because of the Chimecho odds, and we wanted the chance to always get that going.
Nice.
And then lastly, we have 10 Psychic Energies. This number, I'm not sure how Rukan came up with it. He ran the statistics, I guess,
and the numbers.
10 energy was the number of energy. So
cool, perfect. Any changes you would make to the deck? Additions, subtractions?
So off the top of my head, one thing that I didn't like was 1 Necrozma GX, because there were a couple games where I got punished for it. I'm not sure if I would change that. This was I know it was a regional where I just played like 30 games, but it's still kind of a small sample size. So maybe after like 100 games, you can actually know if one Necrozma or two Necrozma is that big of a difference. And then besides that, nothing really needs to change, I think. The list is really good.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. So that's the 60 that he played this weekend. All right, guys. There you have it. That was the list that he played. So one of your toughest matches this weekend, which one was it?
So my absolute toughest match this weekend had to have been my top 4 match. The reason for that is that my deck is not really made to deal with Lycanroc that many times, because he ran a 3/3 Lycanroc. He had 4 double colorless energy, and he would sit there and go attach DC to Rockruff, attach DC to second Rockruff, and it's like, I can't deal with that many Rockruffs, so, because that's going to mean multiple Lycanrocs, and that's going to mean knocked out Malamars. So the matchup really came down to me having to outplay him, and then on top of that, it came down to me having to run hot and for him to whiff. So a matchup that's that close, you know, has to be the hardest matchup of this weekend.
Nice. Awesome. And one of your best plays of the weekend, MVP play that you would consider?
So I think that my MVP play was also in top 4, where my opponent at one point uses Rockruff, or brings up a Rockruff, whiffs a Lycanroc GX, and then my hand isn't good enough to go knock out this Rockruff, or rather that I just didn't want to knock out the Rockruff, because if I did, I went down to 4 prizes and I could get sledgehammered, and I was forced into attacking with Marshadow GX. So the situation was that he whiffed the Lycanroc, retreated the Rockruff to another, I believe to another Rockruff, and then did nothing. So from there, I was like, okay, well, I don't have a Guzma yet. I don't want to knock out this Rockruff, or I'm gonna start losing the prize trade.
Yeah.
What do I do? And then I was like, oh, I'll just Bell of Silence. He can't get a Lycanroc out, and now I have, you know, all the time in the world to hit my Guzma, which is exactly what I did.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was quick thinking. Yeah, that's amazing. All right, cool. So we know that you've been playing for so long, and we know that Portland's around the corner. Are you going to Portland?
Yes.
Cool. Any top 3 picks for Portland, expanded-wise, on your radar?
Top 3 picks. I think the biggest decks are going to be people trying out Seismitoad EX-based decks. The reason for this is that there's a lot of good item-based decks. I think Seismitoad is going to be able to deal with item decks more often now that they don't have to worry about, you know, getting Getsist and the inconsistency early on. So Seismitoad is definitely going to love that. I think they're actually going to not like losing Getsist and Hexamaniac for themselves, but since every deck is losing that, it
evens out the playing field.
It evens out, exactly.
Yeah.
Another deck that could probably be good and expanded that I think a lot of people will play, especially based on me winning this event with it, is literally Gas Can. And you just take it, maybe cut Acrobikes for battle compressors, and then you literally just have an expanded deck. So
and throw in like
maybe Sycamores over Lilies or something.
And an A-Spec,
A-Spec, yeah. So there's a couple changes you could make to the standard list, but I think Gascan would literally just be one of the best decks going into Portland. And then the last deck that I think would be really good going into Portland is Night March. And the reasoning for that is that so many people on the West Coast love their Night March, and a lot of top players really like Night March because of how good it is, and it just gives you what you want, and that's so empowering, being able to just be like, oh, okay, I'm a good player, and I'm getting rewarded for it. That's great. So yeah. Night March will always be around in full force.
I just want to state for the viewers at home that Night March is on top radar, because I'm a firm believer in Night March. I played Night March religiously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always good to hear from the top players that Night March it's still in the game, you know? So that's amazing. All right, cool. That's gonna wrap it up for this video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to share the video with anybody that wants to know what got first place at the Memphis Regionals. With that said, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.